Welcome to another edition of Finish First. I'm Judge Dawson. I don't like to keep you long. I just want to give you information that you can use to take your life to the next level because we are cycle breakers. And I've told you time and time again the elements of being a cycle breaker. First, you got to recognize the need to break a cycle. What is it in your life, in your family, in your community that you want to change, something that you're passionate about? The second thing is, once you decide to be a cycle breaker and that you want to break cycles, now you have to commit to doing it. It's one thing to say, I'm going to be a cycle breaker, I'm going to make change, but it's a whole nother level when we're talking about commitment. And then the third element, after you commit, is that you have to get the tools that are necessary to help you break cycles. We can talk about it all day and you can even give a good effort, but if you don't have the tools, then you won't make it to the finish line. And then the last element of being a cycle breaker is to not give up when the going gets hard. You cannot quit. So once you identify the need to break a cycle, commit to breaking the cycle, and get the tools, that's when hanging in there is very important. Let's go. So today I want to talk to you about something that's very important. In fact, that's the name of this short discussion. What is important, or remembering the things that are important? I believe that through our sessions, these Finish First sessions, we are growing as a family. We are sharing information. And if you forgot, I'm Judge Dawson. I've been on the bench for over 9 years, an attorney for many, many years. And I've seen so many tragedies where decisions have caused people's lives to be derailed totally. So I made it my mission to do these programs so that I can give you my tools, my wisdom, the things I've experienced on the bench, on ways to avoid not only negative interaction with the legal system, but negativity in your life in general. So today we're talking about what is important. So very recently I was driving, and you know how when you're driving you have to do pit stops, right? Whether it's to get more gas or to use the bathroom or whatever the case may be. And if you have kids like me, you may do those quite often. So I'm traveling with the family and we do a pit stop. And while I'm waiting or preparing to get back in the car, I take a seat at a bench. So obviously it's a nice day. The weather is okay. Now, as I walked out, I'm in a different environment. Nothing close to East Cleveland or similar to what I'm normally used to, but I'm okay with that because I've traveled before. But I'm very careful when I travel because I know that things can happen. Yes, things can happen. So you have to be aware of your environment. And that's the lesson number one. Be aware of your environment. When we're talking about things that matter, being aware of your environment is so important because I'm not only talking about your physical safety, meaning know where you're going, know who's around you, but what about the environment of your professionalism and your emotional intelligence? When you walk into a courtroom, that's an environment. You need to be aware of it and you need to manage yourselves accordingly. When you go to work, that's an environment. Be aware of it. What are the rules there and how do you manage yourself? Every place you go, there is an opportunity for you to decide if you're going to put on your best or show them your worst. So being aware of your environment is so critically important. But back to the story. So as I walk out of the store and I began to make myself, migrate to this bench, there's a man sitting there, and we all suffer from using implicit bias, right? Every now and then. Nobody is above the times when we use implicit bias. And let me tell you what that means. That means that inside of us, there are certain things and certain ideas that we have of other people based on what we've experienced. Now, implicit bias is not to the level of racism or discrimination. It's just simply observations that we've had over our lifetime. Now, can those observations be racist or discriminatory? Absolutely. But generally speaking, they're implicit biases based on what we've experienced. And then it's up to us to determine whether or not we're going to take it to the level of being a racist or being discriminatory. So, getting back to my story. I walk out and I approach the bench and there's an older Caucasian man sitting next to me. Now, I don't know this man from anybody, from Adam or anything like that, but I quickly take a look at him and I form my opinions. I said, okay, I'm in a rural area where there are not many African Americans. I have this older Caucasian man sitting on the bench, smoking a cigarette and, t-shirt and jeans, but he's much older. So I start to say, well, you know what, Dawson, Be a little careful, be a little mindful with you and your family, just so that you make sure everyone's safe. But I still sat there, right? Because we all have a right to sit where we want to sit. Shortly after sitting there, the man begins to engage in a conversation with me. And believe it or not, it was a very pleasant conversation, one that lasted a little bit longer than I expected. But nevertheless, during this conversation, we began to talk about what became a theme, and that was what is really important. We started talking about politics. We started talking about the nature of the world and things that are going on. And don't get me wrong, I didn't get too deep in our politics because I don't know the person. But very shortly, the conversation swifted to the things that are important in life. I found out that this Caucasian man was 79 years old. And first of all, we know it's a blessing to be 79 years old. He was able to travel to this location. Maybe this is where he hung out every day. But even that is a blessing. That's when we're talking about things that matter. It's about how can you live your life later on so that you're comfortable and so that you're doing things that you enjoy, even though they're slight things, not the major things, just the beauty of life. So here we are, we have this older man who has traveled to this location and he's having these discussions with me and he's 79 years old. Now, as we're talking, I don't know how, maybe he assumed I was a yogi because I got yoga all over, I'm just joking. But we began to have a conversation about his physical health. And he said, you know what? I'm blessed to be in good physical health. I have my problems. I'm a little stiff. I'm a little sore. And in fact, I hurt my foot recently because I began to lose my balance. So much so, he told me that during the winter, he lost his balance, slipped and fell right on his face, hit his head. Now, he didn't tell me that story for any sympathy. He didn't tell me that story because he was suffering from a concussion or anything like that. But he just wanted to mention how life has slightly changed for him. Going from a young man who was athletic, involved in sports, hunting, and all those great things, to an older man who has trouble just simply balancing. So again, when we're talking about the things that really matter, keep in mind that your health is important. We talked about 1, being aware of your environment. Now we're talking about number 2, being mindful of your health while you can. You don't have to be 79 years old to know that your health is important. But when you get to be 79 years old, you will know that your health is important. So with that being said, some of you know that I'm a yoga teacher. I certify people to be teachers of yoga, which now I think is a whole new mission because I am creating teachers who can go out and teach other people. And maybe this whole world can be a world with a little bit more health and a little bit more balance, right? He said he lost his balance. So the first thing, other than environment, the next thing is being mindful of your health. That is what's important. So we continue with this conversation. And of course, he wanted to go on and on about his balance. And I told him some tips as a yogi, what he could do to maybe reestablish his balance in his older age. But then the conversation shifted to his family. He said that he has a daughter who's completed nursing school and she has a house, about 3 miles out. He has grandchildren and he just started talking about the joy of his grandchildren. And I thought to myself, at 79 years old, here I am, I'm sitting next to a man, 79 years old. He's not mentioning how many cars he has. He's not talking about the bag that he has and how much money he has or his big house. He's proud about his grandchildren and the way that he's involved in their lives. See, I think that's where we miss the boat. Because as young people and younger, all we're concerned about is money, money, money. And we're willing to risk everything and we're willing to forego what's important to get that seemingly glittery gold possession. Sometimes we ignore our families or we put off even having a family because we're more concerned about being rich. Or you don't spend time with your kids because you're working 10 and 12 jobs, or you have a full-time job, you're going to school and you're bartending at night. But when do you have time to really invest in your children? And I'm not talking about the whole concept of, well, I didn't have anything, so I'm gonna make sure my children have everything. Because the possessions, my friends, the possessions are not important. It's more so about the tools and techniques that you pass on to your children. So as I'm talking to this man, he hit on so many times how proud he was of his grandchildren and how he wants them to live a fulfilling life. So what I want to mention to you today in this short talk is those three things. First of all, what matters is your environment. Not only being safe in your environment, but also being aware of your environment so that you can use your tools appropriately. Do you get upset every time you walk into work? Do you make disrespectful remarks in a courtroom? No, that's not the environment for that. So things that are important. One, your environment. Number two, your health is important. Your health is important. Matter of fact, it's the most important thing that you can invest in right now, other than number three that we're going to talk about. Because when you get older, you're going to realize that it doesn't matter. You can have the most beautiful car in the world, but you can't drive it if you don't have the healthy body to get in the car. You can have the biggest house in the world, but you can't even live in the house because you can't live alone, because you need to live in a nursing facility because you didn't take care of your health. And I know that there are some people who don't have a choice. Life has happened fast. It happens to all of us. So you don't control everything, but please control the things that you can and control your health. And then the third one is, and when we're talking about what's important in this very short talk, is your legacy, your family, and how you affect the people around you. Even if you don't have children, what are the people around you going to say when you walk out the door? Was that a positive exchange? Did they gain something from it? Because at the end of the day, you will not measure your life by all your material possessions. You won't sit on your deathbed proud of the fact that you worked 2 jobs, went to school, and you bartended at night. You're not going to brag about that. You're not going to talk about your Gucci bag and your Louis bag and how many cars you had and your brand new watch. No, you're going to start thinking about the people in your life, the way you affected them, and hoping that they've learned something from you so that their life can be a little smoother than yours was. So my friends, not all of our conversations have to be long, but I want to make sure that every time I log on, I'm offering some value to you. And today we're talking about 3 things that matter. There are probably 100 more, and we'll probably do it again later on. But those 3 things I want you to focus on this week: your environment, your health, and the people around you and how you make them feel and how you interact with them. And those are ways that you will change the world one person at a time, and you will be a cycle breaker. All right, let's go.